So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, villains, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcasts for our squad status keeps at our loan show. And I'm delighted to have wonderful Josh Norris on again. NFL guru, draft guru, underdogs fantasy guru, and a man that I met when I was sober and I met when I was inebriated over at the Celtic game.
I got both versions of Neil in one day.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. He got Dr. Jekyll and he got Mr. Hyde as well in the same day. Josh,
Neil, I really appreciate you. I appreciate you having me on. For being honest with your audience, I invited myself to the party. I'm the one that reached out to you after, all of our somber Sundays and said, look, I have no one to talk about this stuff with. I know as much as you and I, not detest, but loathe that so much of, the Premier League has turned into PSR concerns and everything of that sort. You and I also appreciate team building, and so does Aston Villa and the hierarchy there. And so I'm really glad that you and I get to do this exercise today.
And me too. I absolutely am too, because as you say, it's become more and more part of the game of football. It's becoming more and more part of the Premier League game of football. I think that squad building, team building, before you would call it a squad reset where they might sell 2 or 3 players and then have to replace 2 or 3 first team players. But I think this is going to be the norm going forward, unless you're mega rich, unless you've got revenues of 600, 700, 800 million coming in every year. And, Villa don't have that. And it was an interesting piece. And this is why we're prefacing this. And we'll try not to talk about this for the rest of the podcast. But it was interesting when Kieran Maguire put out a piece today where he showed Villa's wages, and Villa's wages were, I think, 218 million over the course of last year, and that being 91% of revenue last year. So you would be hoping that naturally, when we do this next year, that we would have 60, 70, 80 million on the back of that, which would lower squad ratio costs. So, there's a lot. I was down in the dumps when I was in the when I was doing the post-match reaction, because that's exactly how I felt in that moment in time. And then in the cold light of day, when you look at that, yes, we'll still have PSR issues potentially, which, to be honest with you, I don't understand those ones. But the squad cost ratio will be interesting to see what that comes out at. But I don't think it's going to be much worse. But this exercise today is obviously going to open up to see, would we sell more, loan more out than we would actually bring into the team? And I think that's going to be interesting.
And, it's not just the money aspect. It's obviously the draw of the Champions League. And that's, a major reason why I think our winter transfer window was so successful, because we had that draw and we were still in that competition. I will say an optimistic lens of this is when we entered the Conference League, we were able to sign Youri Tielemans on a free, Pau Torres, Moussa Diaby, and then that winter, Morgan Rogers. So there is still talent out there that will want to play for a Europa League squad that was just in the Champions League the year before. So it's not doom and gloom, despite, all the other teams that we were contending for 4th or 5th place for being linked with all these top names. They're still going to be able to find some, I think, awesome players this summer. And hopefully we can talk through that too. Absolutely.
And you are right. Just on that piece as well, I'm actually becoming more of the opinion that the Premier League is equal, if not commensurate draw as any European football.
Yep.
Because I think that what I mean by that, I mean that definitely it's a bigger draw. Like, put it this way: if you're Bologna and you're obviously in the Champions League last year, players aren't running to Bologna to play for Bologna in the Champions League just because they're in the Champions League. There's a money aspect to it. There's a strength of competition aspect to it. There's an eyes on your league aspect of it. There's a getting picked for your national team aspect of it that people would want to come to the Premier League. So I think that you're probably 2 steps up the ladder further than a lot of other teams, even Champions League teams that will be, that will be in the the Champions League from other leagues this year, you will still be able to outspend them, you'll be a bigger draw than them. And also being in the Europa League, people are going to obviously then, that's your trump card on top of it. Because look, it didn't stop Spurs spending money this year. It didn't stop United spending some cash recently. And look, sure, all you've got to do is look at Chelsea and their assault on the transfer market every year. And they were in the Conference League and they had no European football the year before. So I think the Premier League, for me, the more I look at it, is Aston Villa with Champions League football means that we could compete with anyone in the world for a signing. Aston Villa without Champions League football, I think we could still compete with anyone outside of potentially about 10 teams. That ain't a bad position to be in, I think, from a draw point of view. But anyway, we're going to move away from the money side of things, the specific money side of things that will obviously come up in maybe our determination as to whether we're going to
100%
sell some of these players. But for once, I didn't have to do any work for this. Josh came with a spreadsheet, so we're going to keep Josh. We're going to keep Josh around because he came with a spreadsheet. So, Josh, I'm going to pop up your spreadsheet here. And very simply, guys, we're just going to go down position by position, maybe discuss what we think is going to happen with that position room, and discuss the players that we have here. We won't have every single player on this, obviously, but because if someone's talking about Tristan Rowe and any of those players, they aren't in here. It's just really the core players that have been used over the last in the senior squad, I suppose, this year. So let me take this down and pop this up and put this on and
look at that. And chat, let us know if I need to zoom in or make anything bigger, or if I'm missing someone. I see Lee in there, Kari, Adam. Thanks for joining. I'm excited to do this one. That's for sure.
I love this. I love that we've got underdog guys coming in here. Hayden sounding different. This is an AI Hayden. The AI got it just that bit wrong.
That's just as handsome, I will add, and better facial hair. Neil, you certainly have that.
I appreciate that. So let's start with the big shot stopping, getting sent off elephant in the room, and Emi Martinez, because he's the only goalkeeper in the room outside of Ali Ziyech and Sam. Well, we have Joe Gauchi there as well. Robin Olsen, obviously, departing the squad currently. Josh, do you think in your heart of hearts that Emi Martinez is done?
100%. And it's to the point where I think the difference between Europa League and Champions League means there'll be another big loss other than just Emi Martinez. And not to, jump some steps here, but, Emi's probably going to be the one that is the June sell. And then I do wonder if there is one more, and it's not just the excess, the fat on the squad that we have to get rid of in order to comply for everything. To me, that might be the difference between the two. But yes, I certainly believe that Emi Martinez, and I'm sure that he knows that he has to be the one to that got away this summer. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I didn't get.
What do you think the chances are of? It's either, it seems like Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, and then Saudi, and that's it.
So I think this is where Aston Villa will turn around and will be this. And this isn't to do with recency bias, just because he got sent off at the weekend. But I hope that Aston Villa are ruthless with this and go,
yeah.
Atletico Madrid are offering us 42, Saudi are offering us 70. We're not accepting Atletico, we're accepting Saudi. I hope that they're ruthless with regards to this, because he's a big ticket item. And teams will try and undercut us for him. They just will, So I hope they're ruthless with regards to this. If I want him to go to Barcelona. I am Barcelona. I've been to the Nou Camp 3-4 times. I've always had a soft spot for Barcelona. Very much so. Like on a Sunday evening, they're one of the I'll be flicking through and I go, oh, what time are Barcelona on tonight? Always have, even back in the days of Romario, Fat Ronaldo, all those guys. Like they've just always had these marquee players that you look at and you go, this makes me want to play football. So I want him to go to Barcelona if he leaves Aston Villa. But I don't want any team, like my love for any team will very, very much be diminished if we get lowballed. And if, let's say, the Saudis come in with a whopper of an offer, I'm going to pull a number out of the top of my head. Let's say the Saudis come in saying 96 million, take it or leave it. I would chloroform him, fake his signature, and have him over there before he wakes up.
Yeah. And look, these deals aren't done in a bubble. Like if we were able to wait on Douglas Luiz last offseason, then I'm certain they would have gotten just the full chunk of money they were hoping for, rather than, some swap deals as a part, in the hopes of eventually reaching, I don't know, 65, 70 million. I believe Jacob Tanswell reported that, there's a low ball offer for Jacob Ramsey last offseason because
Spurs offered 30 million. Spurs offered 28 million or something like that. It was
right. Just because everyone knows what situation the club is in. And so I'm with you. Hopefully there's just, some fair market value when it comes to Emi Martinez, because he does change, the attitude, the resilience of a team. And in fact, Neil, I would get kind of nervous based on certain situations that this team was in, that we are losing maybe the spearhead of that attitude that we already have in the club, and we'd be searching for that in other ways too moving forward.
Absolutely, I think so.
But at the same time, just naturally, the team is going to positively progress, as some people might say, in terms of stopping the first shot on target next season, even if the keeper might not be as talented, because that's just, how the natural statistic moves in that direction. It just can't get any worse in that regard than where it was this year too.
I agree, and I think the freshening up, I think freshening up the back line in itself, and we have done that, and I've got thoughts on the right back position I shared today, but I think freshening up the back line will help us in that aspect as well. So look, let's talk about some of the names that potentially could come in there. We were linked with John Garcia. Never really thought that one was really going to happen. Oh, well, sorry, I did think that was going to happen, but the second that I heard he was a Barcelona fan, he's playing for the Catalan national team tonight in the Johan Cruyff or the Johan Cruyff stadium tonight. They're playing against Costa Rica. I can't see him not signing for Barcelona, but I don't see him signing for Aston Villa. Put it that way. So I don't think it's going to be him. I think the club are on an all-out offensive for Lucas Chevalier, and if that is the case, sign me up. Sign me up in absolute pen. Sign me up in tattoo ink if you need to, because I've seen enough of him to go, this guy is really good. There are good and there are good goalkeepers out there. None of them are as good as Emi. And I know we say, oh yeah, I made a bad season this year or whatever. None of them are as good in the intangible side of things as Emi. I've said before that he takes the pressure off people. Yes, he put pressure on us at the weekend, and stuff like that. So there's a double-edged sword there. But this guy Chevalier can block marbles, and I've never seen somebody get up off the ground as quick as him. When he saves the ball, he's up straight away. It's incredible. The last person I saw that could get off the ground as quick as him was Jorge Campos for Mexico. What a goalkeeper he was, but he was only like 5'10" or something. He could have been taller. I don't know, but I remember him being tiny. But yeah, Chevalier would be my choice there. What about yourself?
Reported wages and everything fluctuate, can be totally incorrect and all that type of stuff. So who knows where that is at? But if we just use, one of the websites that people do look at, and by people, I mean myself, Emi was a top 4, if not the top earner on this team of a full-time player. And then even Robin Olsen was down the middle of the pack at about 50,000 as well. So that's a combined 200,000 on both of your keepers. And so again, if you get a transfer fee plus a lower wage on top of that, then that again moves just the construction of how you build your roster and how, this team will have to operate in certain situations too, because the price I think will only decline for Emi Martinez moving forward. And I do think while other teams do it differently, that is going to be a calling card of a lot of the moves we're going to talk about today, and just how Monchi, Unai, everyone else just kind of operates in that. If this is the peak value that they foresee in the next 2-3 years, then now's the time to sell, and they'll just bank on their own skill set in order to find a new skill set to replace them. Yeah,
I think so too. And that's going to be the most interesting part, because the spotlight, whoever comes in, spotlight's going to be on them.
Immediate.
It's just going to be immediately. And it's going to be a media spotlight. It's not just going to be Villa fans from the whole 10 spotlight. It's going to be a media spotlight. Will be all over them. Because they've done it at United when United inexplicably got rid of David De Gea. To this day, the worst decision Man United have made in the last in their downfall has been getting rid of David De Gea. And inexplicably doing so. But and the media focuses on there, and it's going to be here too. It's been on Chelsea and so on as well. Do you think Joe Gauchi is going to stick around? Oh, you're just moving it up there.
Well, I mean, I'm just, working on my own accord here. Neil, tell me if I'm off base and moving these players around and all this type of stuff. He was brought in for about 1.5 million.
Something like that too. No more than 3 million or something like that anyway. Yeah.
So I guess my question to you, because just as much as Emi Martinez has been a conversation, so has, the backup goalkeeper for, it feels like, years at this point. Do you think they go in a totally different direction of a younger keeper, since the starting keeper will be younger, and then they flip the backup to now being, more of an older presence in that regard?
This is exactly the way I think they will go. I think I would not be surprised to see Joe Gauchi stay around, but the third goalkeeper in Villa's squad be an older head, kind of like the way Scott Carson has done is at Man City, kind of like the way Tom Heaton was at Man United. He'd like to take Tom Heaton back just to be that third goalkeeper, to literally just be the goalkeeping coach inside in the room with the goalkeepers. Alternatively, I suppose it all depends on what they think of Chevalier. Like, the other thing that I've seen online is, do Villa
spend heavy on two and then battle it out? To me, that just is an impossible way of doing business, of how business is done currently, where all these players will want to be assured in a onesie position, is kind of what we're calling them, either strikers or goalkeepers, right? They have to be assured that they are going to be the starter in order to move and change. It's not just, hey, this is an open competition, 50-50. So I don't agree with the people that say, hey, let's spin big on two and then the best one wins. I don't think that that's a realistic outcome here.
Buying two and the best one wins reminds me, and I'm gonna bring this back to American football parlance. It reminds me of Cleveland Browns quarterback territory.
And you never want to talk about and relate to the Cleveland Browns quarterback situation.
No, my Cleveland Browns helmet's down here. I was going to get it, but like, if you've got two, you mightn't have one. And that's been, but look, I know that's hyperbolic in the sense of goalkeepers. If you've got two good ones, you got two good ones. That's great to have. But I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see someone like Jeepers, I don't know, like a Carl Darlow or somebody like that come in. But look, once again, they might just go with a French guy, a Spanish guy, and two. I have no idea what way they're going to play this one. None whatsoever. But if Neil Dunner was making the picks in the morning, I'd bring an older head in there to be the Joe Flacco of the room, and I'd bring in Chevalier, and I maybe keep Joe Gauchi around for some bit of consistency, someone that's been in the room over the last 18 months.
And unfortunately, it's going to feel like an end of an era, a bit. Of
huge.
Aston Villa when Emi Martinez leaves, even though we saw a bit of decline this year, he just kept us in so many matches, a one-on-one phenom, I feel like. So that's going to be tough. But I think you and I both agree that's going to be the first big sale of the summer. Do you agree with me that there has to be another, or is the excess, the fat that everyone wants to get rid of this summer, feels like Villa will get rid of, will be enough?
That's a great point, because what about Sam Proctor? What about Ollie Ziyech? That's why I highlighted Peter Smith's there, saying that you want a quality up and coming young one. I don't know how good Sam Proctor is going to be in senior football. I don't know how good Ollie Ziyech is going to be in senior football. But if we are trimming the fat and getting the wage bill down, it makes sense just to have your young guy as your third goalkeeper. But you do put yourself through the ringer there, that if you get an injury, you're Joe Gauchi and a young guy away from from an uncertain time.
Okay, what position's next? Because we spent 15 minutes on goalkeepers.
Yeah, we were way too long on goalkeepers there. Let's look. Right back is going to be a massive discussion point. All the positions, I think, in the back line are going to be a massive discussion point. I know your opinion on Matty Cash, but
you and I differ on this one, obviously.
Yeah, I agree with your point on Matty Cash and his attacking point of view. But with the go for it, and I'll tell you afterwards.
No, I think my biggest concern of this season is how we've progressed, and really the last two, how we've progressed in a bunch of other phases of the style of football that Villa likes to play, and too often the right side was just like a barren wasteland when it came to build up play and then attacking threats down the field. Now, if do I believe that if Unai Emery wanted Matty Cash to fly further forward and to bang in crosses and to attack the touchline more often, would he do that? Sure. But at the same time, it feels like every single week, Neil, I see the man run 5 yards forward, then does a nice curl route, and then knocks a pass back over and over and over again. So it's just a bit frustrating. I understand that, the back, it basically turns into a back three and attacking, and the left back, which I could move up on this chart much further forward, because that becomes a left winger in our depth there. And we love to play, through the middle so often. I just think that we have progressed so much more in a bunch of other positions, to the point where at times it feels like, to me, and people differ with this, to me, Matty Cash is the one that's like the slowest person in the mile, that's kind of slowing us down.
I can agree. I think so. Matty Cash, for me, there is rumored interest from Serie A in him. Once again, like Emerson Royale went to AC Milan for, I'm thinking, about 20 million last year. If a 20 million pound bid came in for Matty Cash, would you accept it, or do you think it's too low?
What was the figure?
20 million. Like, my question here is: are the club that desperate to cash in on him for 20 million?
It's a fair question. It's also a position where they've gone, and we'll use this phrase a lot during this, succession planning, right? Because we saw it with Yuri Tielemans, Douglas Luiz to Yuri Tielemans. Let's put it that way, right? We have potentially seen it maybe with Boubacar Kamara to Amadou Onana. They have maybe tried that at the right back position. Matty Cash to Kosta Nedeljkovic, Matty Cash to Andres Garcia. But obviously they didn't fancy Nedeljkovic. And then the question is, do they fancy Andres Garcia enough to, having spent a year, or let's say half a year behind Matty Cash, right? To then take over? I mean, that would be a massive, massive jump for him. But they only know that answer, inside those walls. But I do believe succession planning is a major, major part of how they handle, the squad building.
So here's my thing. Unai Emery, and correct me if I'm wrong, Unai Emery has bought, so he had Matty Cash when he was here. So far, what he's done is he's played Matty Cash there. He's played Neymar Bogart at right back. He's played Ezri Konsa at right back. He's played Disasi at right back. He's played Andres Garcia at right back. He's played Nedeljkovic at right back. And I can't remember, I know in a cup game or potentially, he's seen Ken Kessler-Hayden there. He's had 7 different options at right back that I can remember.
Disasi, he played there as well?
Yeah, I mentioned Disasi. So 7 different players at right back. He's not happy with that position. If he was happy, he wouldn't have played. And I know injuries have taken their toll. I know Cash was injured for a good period of time. I know we had loaned out Nedeljkovic, and then obviously Ken Kessler-Hayden was loaned out and so on. And so injuries take their toll. But there have been times when he's chopped and changed there and put Konsa out there. He ain't happy what's there. I think for my money, there's a right back coming in here. And I think that we could see 3 right backs in the team next year. I think Nedeljkovic is gone. I think Ken Kessler-Hayden is gone. I think if the right money comes in from Matty Cash, he could be sold. But I don't know.
It's a lot of movement here. And I would say that right back and right center back, because if you look at right center back, it is barren for how much depth they have at other positions. There's really no fill and no player other than Ezri Konsa at that point. And, this team has been linked in the past, and we know what links can be, but Juan Foyth in the winter transfer market. And then there was also the one from Sevilla. His name is escaping me at this point.
Like Bade.
Yes, Bade. Yes. And, those were right center backs, right back matches, especially in terms of playing in the back three. So I think there's some crossover and some versatility, which Unai loves, of what could be either the second or the third name on that list too.
Yeah. I don't know what they do. Right, like I think Matty Cash stays.
Okay.
Again, I would put him in the maybe. I would put him in the maybe, because the reason I put him in the maybe is I think if they get an offer they can't refuse, PSR is going to dictate that they will send him, because I think that they will feel that, like the guy I did, Michael Murillo, the guy I did a piece on today, he's 29 years of age, but I think he suits Emery's system more than any fullback we currently have. you know. So, and I think he will go and sign us. That's why I mentioned is 6 right backs, maybe 7 right backs played in his time here. I think he's searching for the right back that fits his system 100%. You know, so I think that's going to be a really interesting place this year. I think it's going to be more interesting than we probably think.
Do you think in a ideal world he'll continue playing as almost that joins into the back three, or do you think he'll ever move to more of those give you the width? Because to me, the right wing and the right back are kind of linked in this system in a way. I know that's changed over the last couple of years, and you have talked about that extensively. But if that's the case, even Christian Mosquera played some right back, some left center back, some right center back. He's kind of played all over. So it is one of those positions, I think, like versatility, which is a word he has used consistently, can really pop up here and allows you to fill multiple spots and allows you to, have a game plan in a variety of ways too.
I think so. To answer your question about do I think he's going to move in? So we look at his time at Sevilla when he won 3 European Cups, Europa Leagues, should I say. He hit Dani Alves, right back. At times, yeah, and I can't remember, the name escapes me for the other guy, begins with a C, that played it right back as well. They weren't guys who were cutting inside. They weren't guys who were tucking in. They were winger. They were like flyers. They were out there. So I'll never say never with regards to it, but I think currently he's recently, I think we're seeing that he prefers this, and in probably because of the way football has gone. But I think he would trust his right back a small bit more, or he would want the right back that tucks in a small bit more if he gets a right winger that he wants. And we'll get onto that in a moment, because I think right wing is another position that he's going to go all out for if he can. I think he has to. We didn't talk about right-sided centre back, so we'll merge the two centre back rooms together. That Mosquera that you have in there is not Christian Mosquera. That's Yeri Mosquera, the Colombian guy, I think.
Correct.
I think his name is Yeri. I think, obviously, look, he's a young kid, and he may be in and around there. I think he will be. He'll be there on the the playing on the preseason, I think, anyway, because hey, it's always good to have a Colombian guy in your on the plane when you're going to America. I think for all the the Spanish fans, Spanish speaking fans and stuff like that, there, I think it would be a good draw. But I think it is definitely like right centre back. I'm coming up dry on who Villa could be linked to and could buy in that right centre back, because once again, like you mentioned it, Josh, he's not going to be first choice, whoever they bring in there, because I think Ezri Konsa is in absolute cast iron on that team next year.
100% with you. 100% with you. So it has to be someone younger, right? And they've done that on the left side, who we'll get to here in a moment. But the right side, yeah. So, all right.
Sorry.
Let's. I guess my one final point on the right back situation. From the left side with Pau Torres, when he's in there, we get these like wide raking passes that switch the field from the left side to the right side. It seems like we are really missing that from the right side to the left side. And we sometimes get that from the midfield, but if we're able to get that from like that, again, third center back / right back that does stay back, then again, that just allows us to skip passes, open things up a bit more often. And that's an area other than, flying forward and creating some stuff that I would appreciate a new right back too.
Yeah, I think there will be a new right back. Like Curry says there, he says, I'm refusing to criticize. I think Matty Cash will be sold, but I don't think he'll be sold unless a replacement comes in. And I don't think the club will get rid of him unless we get the commensurate value. That's kind of where I am with him at the moment. That if you can upgrade on him, he's probably one of the first people I am upgrading.
How I kind of view it too is would you be disappointed if they sold him to another Premier League club? And this goes with anyone on the squad, right? Might have a different opinion than a lot of people out there. Like, I would not be upset if we sold Matty Cash to Nottingham Forest, and that's not something I would say with a whole bunch of other players on the squad. So,
well, yeah, exactly. Left back, we've got a glut of people at left back here. I know there was some discussion in the chat room earlier about Ozcan. Look, as I say, Ozcan is 19. He's coming into a new league. He's a ton of minutes played. Like, maybe he is in that left centre back position. Maybe he's left back. I think his versatility is a positive there. But there's going to definitely be movement out of this room. Who do you think is like of the players that you have there? Who's gone? I suppose first of all, who's definitely gone?
And this is a name and a link I should have mentioned earlier with succession planning, but obviously Luka Dean is gone. Just in terms of this is the highest value they'll be able to get. There's only a year left in his contract, and this is why you bring in Ian Maatsen. And for better or for worse, in some games like Newcastle, excellent final game of the season. Some left to be desired, still learning on the job. But this is like the definition of, I don't think many of us at this point last year thought that, Ian Maatsen was going to be the second biggest target of Aston Villa's summer, but he absolutely was, because they think almost a year in advance in some of these spots with the mindset they will get rid of the older, aging, more expensive player. And I think that's where Luka Dean's time comes to an end with us here.
And I think just by the dint of the fact of his wages and stuff like that, potentially, I think he, I suppose I would, I would entertain offers for him. But then that means I would entertain, like, obviously Alex Moreno. I think I could see Alex Moreno playing for, pick a team in La Liga next year. I think he's not for the squad next year, which is a shame, because I was surprised that we moved on from him so quickly. But
after he was the first signing of Emery's campaign with Villa, and it would fit with he is older, a somewhat veteran presence, but also much cheaper than Dean at the same time. But it makes sense if they were willing to let him go to an opposing club this year, then to me that means the writing is on the wall of what will happen this summer.
Yeah. As Jonathan Ridgway says there, salary being high, Saudi is our only hope. I think Saudi is probably where he will end up. From Alex Moreno, Alex Villa James says to Betis is a done deal. I know we got signed him from Betis, but it just seems so logical that he would go back to Betis again. In a cut price deal. And also James mentions here he thinks that Luka Dean might sign a deal with less wages. I am reluctant to hang my hope on players signing for less wages.
Neil, would you like to sign for a lower contract with whatever you work, on a daily basis? I think it's a difficult conversation to have.
It's a very difficult conversation to have, absolutely, especially when you've got Saudi money out there. I mentioned there about the Premier League being the selling point, but you can't go, but you get to play in the Premier League at 33 years of age. And then he goes, yeah, but I could have an easier job for more money in Saudi, and the weather's great. So it's a tough sell. So I think, so like basically on this and on where we've gone already on this, we need a right back, we need a right centre back, we need a left back.
Now, I will say, if they do believe that Ozcan can, play this left back role in a back three, and then in those games, Neil, that's when you have Garcia as the player that flies up the field, as the depth on the right side. That to me is an interesting dynamic that we haven't seen very much, because he definitely can lock down that, width of a, third center back on the left side, but, more naturally fits as a left center back here too. But he's played both, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
He has. Yes, yeah, he has. And in Turkey, I don't know if I've said this in the podcast before. I work with over 150 Turkish people.
He just made the national team today, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he did. Yeah, I read that before. And when he signed for us, everybody knows I'm a big Villa fan. All they have to do is look behind me in work meetings and stuff like that, and they know I'm a huge one. So like the amount of people that reached out to me about Özkan Yashin and said, "Oh my God, he's like the Turkish football is so high in him," but they're high in him as a centre half. They are high in him being a centre half for transitioning into a centre half role. So really, really interesting to see what happens there. If that does happen, see what Unai Emery maybe thinks of him from that point of view. Let's lump the two centre midfield positions in together. So, and I think what we'll do here is, I think this is probably the easiest room to discuss, because there's definitely three players, potentially four, that I don't think the club or fans really want to move on from here. So who do you want to move on from this room, in this room?
Well, I don't want to lose Boubacar Kamara, but I think it is all defined on if he signs a new contract or not. If he doesn't, then again, we talk about peak value. This is it. And then you have the succession planning with Amadou Onana. If he does resign, then boy, is that a trio that you can use in a variety of ways that you can chop and change. That, we've seen injuries at that spot too. That to me is, almost the heart of the team. And in many matches, like you look at the Newcastle match, I mean, they just ran that game. So it's just the contract to me, Neil. Do you agree?
I think the club will throw whatever money they can at Kamara.
Yeah.
I think they understand what they have there. Whether he signs it or not is another question.
Especially, did you see that interview that Morgan Rogers and JJ did together where they were asked, like, who are the teacher's pets, the coach's pets? And they said it was Pau Torres and they said it was Boubacar Kamara. If that's the case and he feels the love with that, you would like to think that a new one can get done, unless it was all based on Champions League or not.
I would think he's going to sign again.
Yeah,
I do. Because once again, I think he's going to want to get into the French national team for the World Cup. And, if he moves to insert team here, if he moves to, I don't know, PSG, whoever moves back to Marseille, I'm just not 100% sure that he gets the game time that he needs. 38 games under his belt, plus for Aston Villa, he's back in that. And it's difficult to get in that French team in that midfield. It's bloody difficult. So, like, if you're only playing 20 games a season or 25 games a season for PSG, you're not going to get the PSG tax when Deschamps goes to pick his team. It's actually going to hinder you. So, I think his best hope of being even an alternate, I think, on that squad is to stay with Aston Villa and have the best season of his career.
The other part of that is, let's say he's asking for maybe a little more money. Look, this is all theoretical, just going through exercises here. A little more money because the Champions League was not, achieved. I wonder if Villa thinks, okay, if we keep him, that means you can sell Enzo. That means you can sell Lamar Bogart at the same time because you have someone like this locked in. So it's almost we pull from here to give to here. But then if then he is the other big sell of the summer, then you are keeping at least one of the two names that I just brought up at the same time, I think.
And I think the fluidity of that room is, I think the opportunity cost there could be opportunity cost that comes from that room. Look, I think Ross Barkley, I think we will entertain offers for Ross Barkley. We will obviously entertain offers for Dendoncker. You would be hoping he would go back to Belgium. I do think that Leander Dendoncker is more highly thought of in European football than he is in amongst the Aston Villa fans. I do think he is more highly thought of there. But
don't you think, like, if a team just
get a move,
if a team just took on his wages, we would just get rid of him? Like, we wouldn't even want a transfer fee on top of it?
No,
his wages are like sky high in comparison to what he brings to the table.
Like obviously they would consider it. But I think every single player would be maximization of like put it this way, we're in no rush to get rid of him for that deal.
Yeah, if
that makes sense. I don't think so, because I think it'll be maximization of transfer value to put on balance sheet. I'm not too worried about squad cost ratios. From the wages point of view, just now I'm not worried about it on the 20, but I think the team will be worried about more just maximizing value in the door, maximizing something they put in their balance sheet before the 30th of June. So they will entertain it, don't get me wrong, but I think in the here and now, I think they would dismiss it completely. That could be something whereby they get rid of him in transfer deadline day, for that deal.
I can see Ross Barkley going to one of the teams that, was just promoted. That seems like a nice level for him, or maybe one of the teams that stayed up as well this year. I think the big conversation, because somehow he's become one of the most beloved players in the fan base, is Enzo Barrenechea. What are your thoughts moving forward of him as a member of the squad? How long he might stay? Does it last the preseason? Or what his value might be for another team that comes calling? Because by all accounts, an excellent season for what he brought to Valencia this year. Yeah,
I just noticed we've 1874, 1,874 people watching this, and I just thought that was very
fantastic.
It's gone up to 1888 now. Still not too bad, but keep watching. Bring more people in with you. I shouldn't be giving out about a higher number. 1889. But my dog seems to like Enzo Barrenechea because he just started barking like mad outside the window here. I would like to keep Enzo. I would like to keep Enzo
Okay.
if we could, but look, we know what's going to happen is he's going to be sold. He's going to be sold if the offer is there. Like if they can get 25 million for him, and I don't see that being outside the realm of possibility, because like the world, like the whole of Europe knows his potential. I think that they will do that. But once again, I don't think that they're in a rush to do that before the 30th of June. I think that one could be a post preseason sale. Personally, I would keep him. And he would inherit the Barkley position within our team, the Barkley/Bogart position within our team, because he can play as a 6, he can play as an 8, and I would be more open to keeping him and letting Bogart go than I would be of selling him and maybe keeping Bogart, even though Bogart's got a lot of versatility.
How are he's viewed? And look, I know we have Eiling Jr. down below, and it was almost an up and down season for him, both with Bologna and then Middlesbrough, if I'm not mistaken, of where he finished out the season. Well, how I always viewed him and Enzo was that Juventus just couldn't come in with the exact monetary figure that would have been ideal for a Douglas Luiz sale. And so they were throw-ins for a year beyond to sell them, or 2 years beyond to make up for like that gap. Do you think
Well,
that
initially it was Dean Howson and Matthias
Weston
Sule
McKennie
who Aston Villa asked for.
And Weston
And then
McKennie,
it went from
like all these names were passed
McKennie
along,
then came in,
so I'm totally with you. Like, I think it went from, okay, Dean Howson, would love to have had him on the roster. Sule, 100%. But then it gets to, okay, which of these players have skills and then actual potential? And then when we loan them out, then, a larger increase of what we actually paid for them. And then obviously you add that to the budget in the future. But I could be I could be totally off base with that, but that's just how I think that deal was kind of constant.
But I do think that they see a project in both players. I think, like, obviously, look, Samuel Jr. is English under 21, starts for the English under 21s. Enzo Barnechea was selected for the Argentinian national squad and then got injured 2 years ago when he was at Juventus. So like, there's definitely players there, but they're just not the players that Villa initially wanted. So that always has a little caveat in the back of the mind.
Now, one is much younger than the other one.
Correct.
Enzo is, I think, 24, and Eiling Jr. is 2021, if I'm not mistaken. So there is an age gap between the two.
Yeah. There is an age gap between the two, but once again, Enzo missed about 18 months with injury. So, once again, there's a playing time disparity there. So then Donker is sold. I think we agreed on that one.
Hopefully.
Did we agree Barkley being sold?
Yes, I think so. Especially when he came in, his entire statement was, hopefully this allows me the platform to get back into the World Cup team. The English national team. He's just not getting near the game time that he got at Luton, obviously. So I'm sure he'd be looking for a move. So
yeah, absolutely. What do we think about Enzo Bogart? Do we think both of them stay around? Because you've got McGinn, like we've got McGinn there in the right
the versatility.
Like the versatility, like they will just pull him back into that position if they get an opportunity to sell one of those players, I think.
Again, we might disagree on this. I think Bogart is more likely to stay than Enzo.
Yeah. No, there's no disagreement there. No disagreement. I would keep both, but Bogart is pure profit, if you want to call it that way. He's just signed a new deal as well, so I think that he's liked. I think he's very much so liked within the
and the versatility as he's played it right back. And then I mean, we went through that terrible time where it was Kamara and Bogart as the center backs. Let's not forget that when people speak about this season and missteps, that was not a fun time for all of us to watch those matches and forcing those two players into roles. I think it was Wolves, if I'm not mistaken, where that was readily apparent. Okay. I think for preseason, let's say this is the roster that enters preseason. Do you think all 5 of those players in central midfield are on?
I see all 5 of those players here when we jet off.
Okay. So let's keep it that way then.
So that's the cutoff point we put on. So who goes to preseason? Do we think so far? Yeah, we should have established that at the very start.
So this is the rolling rules. So
exactly the rolling.
Can I give you my hot take here? Okay, 45 minutes into this episode. Unfortunately, I think that Jacob Ramsey might be the second big sale of the summer.
pure profit again.
And he has interest elsewhere. And it's not like he was starting every single match to end the season at the exact same time. Like you said, pure profit is a huge part of it. And I just think like those wing positions is something that, I mean, look at how, I'm not going to say, because we know, look, we can kind of package these together. Leon Bailey, gone.
Yeah. Leon Bailey's gone. Yeah. Coutinho gone. Emi Buendia gone. Lewis Dobbin is already going to be going on loan again. I would imagine to Norwich again, but.
Right. So this is sell /
there's a lot of players that we've got down here has been sold.
Look how thin it gets up top, you know? Yeah. And I understand that getting rid of JJ would do the exact same thing, but I hate seeing Morgan Rogers on the right wing. And I understand that he still has statistics and production from that side, but he just gets lost in the shuffle a bit too often on that right side in comparison. If he plays through centrally, if he plays on the left wing, he is a focal point of everything good that comes with Aston Villa football. And that means here, if they sign someone for the 10, he could play in the left wing. If they sign someone for the left wing, then you can still fit him at the 10 position. So maybe that's just my bias, but I think, you know, allowing Morgan to play in one of those two spots gets the best out of the team, and it gets the best out of the individual player too.
Take Asensio from loans there, pop him in the 10 position, because I don't see a way that Asensio isn't coming back currently.
Yep.
I just think he is. I just even think his Instagram post leads to believe that they're further down the line in discussions and him coming back. What do you think? Am I off base on that one?
I'm totally with you. This is someone that, you know, I think the last time you and I were on an episode of the show, it was talking about João Felix and it was talking about Marco Asensio in terms of they have to have a player of this caliber that he is searching for to play that number 10 spot. And look, something that we have missed in these big sales that we have had with John Duran, with Moussa Diaby, with some others, is like a legit ball striker. Because as we saw at the start of the season, as we saw in 2023, 2024 with Moussa Diaby, those matches in those moments can be defined by the best ball striker on the field having a moment of magic. And Duran won those matches. Diaby won some matches. I think Asensio has done that as well. Marcus Rashford did that. And we know Rashford's not re-signing. So with Asensio, at least you bring that back into the fold here.
Yeah. And again, this is why, you know, we mentioned, does Jacob Ramsey get sold? I think if Emi Martinez gets sold, I think that's it. I think that's it pre-June 30th. I don't think there's anyone else that we would need to sell. We need one big ticket sale, I think. And we will sell, as I say, look, if we look down through that seller loan side there, we're not talking about loaning out many of those players. You know, I don't think the club is talking about loaning out many of those players. I think the club are talking about, well, Coutinho, maybe. Dobbin would be a loan. I don't know how the hell we're going to get rid of Coutinho. Like, are we living in a post-parallel world whereby somehow we have to have Coutinho in a fucking Villa shirt next year? Like, are we in a world where that potentially? I'm being facetious here, obviously. I'm being facetious here, but I think he just stays in Brazil. But it's interesting. Like, I don't know.
Look at how barren the squad gets. I mean, I know that we will bring in players. To me, Neil, we talk about succession planning. Someone like Jacob Ramsey to Naipan, who we have been linked with, hopefully to me that gets over the line, is like really strong succession planning that kind of kicks on a new wave of younger. I know Ramsey certainly is not near one of the oldest players in the squad, but also cheaper while still having the upside to grow into.
Yeah. Because let's get on to potentially who we think we could fill the squad up there. We might give 10 minutes to that. I don't know whether we need to spend longer than a minute on, are we selling Ollie Watkins or Zepequino when we look at where the squad is right now.
It's a stay.
People are, guys, I've seen the comments. A lot of people are saying just flog Watkins and replace him. I would replace Watkins first and then flog him. You know, if you're going to do it that way, if you're heart set in getting rid of Ollie Watkins, which everybody knows I don't, if you've your heart set on that, you have to have a man in the building before you start letting him go. Otherwise, your pants will be down and you will be crying, because the prices will go through the stratosphere for strikers. If that is the case, because you will have an 18-year-old unqualified young man that's come in from Feyenoord and nothing else. And people will say about, you've got Malin, or you can play Rodgers at as a number 9. You can't on the first day of the season. You absolutely can't. If you're selling your record goal scorer and you're coming up and your big master plan is only to have Rodgers and Malin and not have anyone for that succession planning, I think it gets rough really, really quickly. Do I say that Ollie Watkins has to stay? No, but I'm saying that Ollie Watkins, there needs to be an understudy, and we've sold 2 of them or 3, well, 2 of them, and not kept that. We won't be keeping the loan of the other one.
And you just can't spend, hundreds of thousands of pounds on 2 strikers at this point when you're this close up to the barrier, because only one place in this system. Now, Arsenal won't come back in, but if another deal that is somewhat similar comes into the fold and you have through backdoor channels something locked up with like Samu from Porto, or
that's exactly who I'm thinking, Josh.
Yeah.
Somebody like that. Yeah.
That would make sense. That would totally make sense. But that has to be, we are selling Ollie Watkins because we already have this lined up. It's not, we've already purchased this other player, and so now we have to sell Ollie Watkins. It's exactly how we started this conversation. You will not get fair market value for Ollie Watkins in that case.
And here's the thing, we sell all those players that we have in that sell list, and you throw in, there's people who are saying that we got to flog other players as well. Pau Torres needs to go as well. Seen that in the comments. You sell all those players. I can guarantee you people will be up in arms when we don't get European football, if we don't get European football next year, if the transition is too big, because it happens. We can say about it all the time. In a perfect world, you can football manager this and broom 10 players out and bring 10 players in, and it just meshes perfectly all together. I know you could say the Forest did it, but it took them 2 years, if not 3 years to do it. We did it when we first came up. We finished 17th in the league. I think that we're talking about a different caliber of player here. And, unless the fit for the person who's coming in is 100% right, I think that the opportunity cost is there. Yes, look, if you sell Watkins, and I know Kerry made a point there about him, his contract expiring in 2027, but it's the most important position in all of football, the striker. It's the most important position. And we go back to the Browns quarterback analogy. Browns get rid of Baker Mayfield. They go, yeah, we can improve on Baker Mayfield. Then all of a sudden, they have Jacoby Brissett thrown to nobody, and they're back into absolute wilderness with regards to QBs again. Same thing can be said for a striker. It's not that I'm just saying Ollie Watkins. It's that we don't have another striker behind him. If John Duran was on that list, I can hand on heart 100% honestly say I would be saying, take the 60 million for Watkins right now, but we don't have John Duran there, and that's where we are at the moment, and that's why I think Ollie Watkins, the club won't want to sell him.
So, other potential here. What if Emi Martinez is part of a swap deal with Barcelona, and it's someone like Torres coming back on the opposite end?
But the reason I'm doing this is because I'm kind of going, there's your left winger in my view, or you're somebody who plays in behind. Yes, obviously can play up top as well, but it's that's not beyond the realms of possibility as well. If I'm right,
and you kind of play Torres in the pseudo striker role that Rashford played, where he would drift out, and then you get Morgan back centrally. It was more fluid than obviously having Ollie.
And you're 100% right. And I'd say, Josh, the thing going back to my point is, if Ferran Torres was on this list and we got 60 million offer for Ollie Watkins, I'd be a bit more comfortable about letting Ollie Watkins go. It's about the safety of that striker position. Ollie Watkins goes for 60 million in the morning. Yes, I know you can replace him, but who becomes the next option? And I'm expecting the comments to light up with names here. Myself and Josh spoke about under 23 players that I've got a thing coming out on. There are some really good under 23 strikers out there at the moment. I've got 5 of them that I've profiled, and I can't wait to get it out because it was really exciting. So there definitely are players that I'm excited about. I'd just like to see them on this list before somebody offered me 60 million for Ollie Watkins.
And, you know, someone proven up there is massive because it changes the course and the scope of the season. And, you know, I think what Villa this morning, which was very timely, put out, you know, the goals and the assists. Like, are you getting rid of Ollie Watkins' 17 goals, John Duran's 12 goals, and then we don't know exactly about Asensio? That's 3 of the top 4 goal scorers of the season. And then with assists, you know, we already got rid of Luka Dean. And then Ollie Watkins is top of the list at 14 at the exact same time. Like, hopefully goals can come from other places too. And then on top of that, I do think in the striker department specifically, like it kind of is with Goalkeeper, going from, I don't know, Garcia down to Chevalier is the difference between Champions League football and Europa League at the same time. Like, would then, if it's Europa League, you have to go from Ollie Watkins to, I think is it Goussin, who I know Jacob Tansel keeps bringing up from Nice, if I'm not mistaken, as like a totally unproven player. But if you drop down from the striker, because that needs to be your sale, is that the difference between, again, Champions League football, where we talked about Torres, Vlahovic, a whole bunch of other names, versus down to Goussin?
Like, put it this way. If Vlahovic is really available for a cut price deal of about 35 million, I don't understand why half the world isn't in for him. And he goes to Aston Villa, and then somehow Villa sent Ollie Watkins, and somehow brought in someone like Samu Agahoya Meridian from Porto. I can guarantee you, I won't wear clothes for a week. Like, I will be so happy. I won't be able to. Like, I will just be brimming. It's like, so it's there are possibilities here, but the thing is, at this moment in time, you know, you've 75 Premier League goals there that you got to replace. Plus, you've got 40 assists, 40 Premier League assists in the last 2 seasons alone. Just with the assist point of view, that you have to replace. That's a lot of goals. I would like a known entity or somebody that's at least had 6 months at the club. Like, as I said, Duran would have been perfect right now. But he went in January, probably an overinflated price for him in January. If we were get the same price for him now, I think the club would consider keeping. Look, as I say, he's gone. We don't need to talk about him. It's just that's the barest room in the whole squad at the moment, and I want to see my striker in there before I think about letting go of 75 goals and however many assists he's had over the course of the last few years.
Yeah, look, he's not a perfect player. He's frustrating. He's not perfect, but I think with already all the changes that you and I have made here, then it seems like there will be another season of Ollie Watkins in an Aston Villa kit for me. Yeah, absolutely. Move across there, because you've got a couple of names that you wanted to bring to the table regards to. So yeah, like the likes of Nipan, Diarra. Like, we've got Trevally in there already. I think Diarra is such a fun watch. Hopefully all of you can spend, I don't know, the same 15 minutes that I did watching compilations of him, and even full matches when I try to go back and watch those. I know John McGinn is a ready comparison a lot of people make for his versatility. I also saw a little bit of like Alexis McAllister in his game too, of playing in a whole bunch of different positions and being nice moving backwards as well as going forwards. If Naipan and Diarra are 2 ads that this team can make, and you start succession playing, like I said, for that left wing spot for maybe Youri Tielemans or John McGinn in the future, that lines up with the kind of trajectory of transfer windows that Monchi has done in the past for me too.
Yeah. I would have no problem signing either of those 2 players. Haven't done a Naipan piece yet. I have a Diarra piece that, just to be honest with you, I just shelved it because we haven't been linked with him since, and there's so much going on in the league at the moment, but I might get it out there. But I'd have no problem signing the 2 of those. I'm not as familiar with the next guy that you have there, Gasson. I'm not as familiar. I'm more familiar with another. He's with Nice. Yeah, I've got my eyes on another striker from Ligue 1. But talk to me about him and why you have him on that list.
No, I just saw, you know, the beat writers connecting his name. So I just watched a little bit. And I mean, I could be totally off base here. It seemed like they would play at times, you know, almost a 2 striker or 2 players up top. And he would be the one that would receive the ball closer underneath and really drive with the football. And it seems like Unai, more than a lot of other managers out there, really care about, you know, control, dribbling, players who can move the pitch with their move up the pitch with the ball underneath them. And I think that he is a interesting, larger target with that too. So
Mhm.
it was just a link I've seen other people make.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to mention a few names and we'll go into it. Like
Okay.
for me, Ollie Watkins, striker there. If we have a name, there's two names that I would love to have underneath him there as well. Learning from him for a year, or learning in the league for a year, and then if the club want to part ways next year, I think that they'll still get decent kind for Ollie Watkins. And one is Lucas Dassin. I've mentioned him on Twitter a couple of times. I just really love what I see from him. He's Belgian striker. He's playing with Saint Etienne. Probably, I would say maybe 10 to 15 million unless there's a bidding war. I think he'd be a perfect second striker in there for Ollie Watkins. And also, there's a guy called Franjo Ivanovic playing for Union St. Galway's. Have a look at him. Another guy who just, like, I just love the two types of strikers that those two guys are. For maybe an outlay of 40 million, you could have two strikers in there that you would feel comfortable with. I know 40 million is a lot of money, and I'm probably going on the higher side for both of those players. But I would have two strikers in there that would be young, that would be hungry. Obviously, we don't have spaces for them, so you would be one or the other. But man, I would be very happy to see the two of those get up to speed in the Premier League. And like John Duran, see how they fare in the Premier League, and then if there's your succession planning potentially for an Ollie Watkins in that aspect there. But yeah, I'm just really enamored by them. Failing that, Samu Meridian and just blow 60.
To me, that would be the top target.
See what the crack is. Oh yeah, he's a beast. He's going to be Spain's top striker in next 2 years.
That would be the top target. I'm also very aware that names are linked constantly with Aston Villa, and then we don't really hear about players who are absolutely going to come in. Like I don't think, again, at this time last year, we thought Maatsen would be the target of the summer, or Nana would be the target of the summer until, a day or two ahead of time. So I'm ready to be surprised. And I'm constantly learning that the reason why names are linked with certain clubs is, agents getting the teams that are going to be spenders in the market and having, their clients linked with them, like Coyote, for example, right? Now is at Brentford. I remember his name being linked with Villa. He's a really fun watch. I really enjoyed watching him in the Premier League this year for when he played, but it just feels like, certain names get thrown in the basket just to generate interest. And then those players always go to clubs kind of adjacent or a lower tier of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Kevin, you make a good point there. He says it's the Belgian league, though. Emery would not let them there. That's exactly why I'm pro holding on to Ollie Watkins, and then our succession plan isn't there at the moment for him. At the minute, and as I said, these are guys who come in to maybe play behind him, specifically Franjo Ivanovic, but just watch him. The guy, he also played in European football, European competition this year as well. I really like him. I really, really like him, and he gets around the field. I think that you spend enough time watching him, and you see where he picks the ball up. You're kind of going, wait a minute, he's supposed to be a central striker, and then all of a sudden, then you just see him back in the central striker role, and you're like, how the fuck did he get there? It's kind of like it's an interesting.
One final question, Neil.
Yes,
there have been times, and it certainly looks like that Leon Bailey's 23-24 season was more of an aberration than it was, truly what he was in this uniform. But when Villa were at their best 2 seasons ago, he brought width to that side, right? Even in matches this year, he would either come on or be the game plan from the start, and that didn't work out, to bring width to that side. There isn't a single player, I think, in the squad right now that brings that same width to that side who also has, a left foot on them. So if he leaves on some level, I think they will bring in someone of that type, of that ilk, to offer that same width to that outside too, with obviously on the left side, the left back, bringing that to the table.
And sorry, I'm just I missed my missus because she's like, don't forget bedtime is coming up soon for the kids. And I'm like, well, Jesus, it'll be on that long. Apologies. But I think, look, is that maybe and I know, look, Ferran Torres would probably be a bit more centrally, but if you were to play no.
Well, like I know, like Madueke's name was brought up at some point with Chelsea, and if they keep circling, but he would play that role for me here. But I'm not sure if any of us are kind of sold on his consistency. But at the same time, it's a winger, so what consistency can you bank on week to week?
Yeah, I'm confident in I think the club will attack the right wing position. I think they wanted to give. I think they needed it to be Bailey's position at the start of this year because he was the main man the year before, and I think he needs to be that type of player. He's not that main man anymore, and I think that they maybe gave him. And then in January they were like, "Oh, we have to bring in Daniel Mallon," and you know things didn't transpire the way they wanted it. And then Rodgers started playing over there, and obviously Mallon was going to be the replacement or the understudy for Ollie Watkins or whatever, and then he doesn't get in the Champions League squad, and I think they were moving on the fly. Not that it sounds as chaotic as I just made it sound there, but I think that they will get a right winger. I think they will get a right winger from somewhere. But look, as we've gone through this, like, so the big piece for this, Josh, is like when we've done this, look at the holes that we have. If we sell all the players, that we think will be sold, and the chat room, we were great. Don't get me wrong, I'm not even a good chat room.
You want to sell more?
They added even more names, you know. Yes. And I know there's the temptation to just go like clean house, but the club needs European football, and we're going to need. It's a balancing act. Is what I'm saying here, and that was, and this has made it more apparent to me that it's a balancing act more than we will ever believe. I suppose, really, with the squad building and the squad. Reset / transition that we're going to have to undertake for the next couple of years.
Overall, for the theme of this summer window, do you think that it's going to be a big transition into youth? And I just bring that up with the Naipan, the Diarras of the world and that type of thing, where it's almost a reset in a way? Or do you think that it will still bring in all types of ages, some starting, some developmental, all that?
I think we will. I think in defence, I would not be surprised in defence to see Unai buy old. Okay. And when I say old, I'm talking like 27, 28 plus. Because I think that he wants stability in that, and he wants experience, and he wants players that will just come. And all you've got to do is just look back at his Villarreal team. You know, Raul Albiol was the rock solid defender there. I know Pau Torres was younger, but he was coming up through the ranks of Villarreal. But Albiol was the old head inside there, 34, 35, 36 years of age, you know, and he's still rocking on. They had Danny Parejo in there over the years. He's had Vincent Abor. You know, he's not been afraid to bring in an old player to set the tone. And I think more so in the defensive positions, he wants people who are experienced, understand what they're doing. And then he allows the strikers and the more flair players to be younger. So yes to Naipan. I think the older players will probably come in, and the more experienced players will probably come in more specialist positions like right back, like defensive midfielder and stuff like that. And he's proven that. He signed. I know Yuri Tielemans was only 25 when we signed him. But
played a lot of football though.
He played a ton of football, yeah. And Barkley played a ton of football. And I think that's worth more to him. Exactly. And well, Barkley was 30, but I think that's worth a lot to him. Is there's certain positions where he doesn't want to have to coach people up, and I admire that because, you know, you can spread yourself too thin as well. And look, we'll see what happens with regards to those positions.
So just to close this, my number one wish for this summer is in matches for our right side to not go invisible. Okay, and that also means to not force Morgan Rogers on that right wing spot. Again, I understand statistically he was still impactful, but just from viewing games, he takes over when he's through the middle or from the left side, in my view. So on this right side, the right back to me is going to be kind of larger, bigger presence to work in that three at the back. That can also versatility if Konsa does miss matches, who then can fill in as the right center back. And then maybe our Garcia plays the right back spot. And then like you're saying, that means someone like is the next big investment will probably be at that right wing spot. So those are like the two big moves for me of the summer.
Yeah, pace and ball carrying is what I want to see in that right wing spot. Yeah. I would prefer to bring in an older right back that sticks to his position and knows how to defend and can be on an island out there, and have our attacking prowess come from that right wing position, because, you know, we scored a lot more goals when Bailey was able to do that. I want to replicate that if I possibly can. And now that we've got Rodgers, move Rodgers out to the left where he's more comfortable. You know, I think you become a two-headed monster then, and then it makes it easier then to, you know, maybe look towards the striker position. Then if you have the provision, the guys who are going to provide it then on the wings. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be really interesting.
I won't take any more of your time.
I know. I'm feverishly looking up here going, I've got 5 minutes to get out of here. Josh, I could have stayed on for another 2 hours only for the fact that I have to put kids to bed, but this has been amazing. Josh, you've got a lot of love in the comments here as well. You know what, the beauty about doing this podcast for me is that I get to meet so many interesting and wonderful people. Even in the comments, guys I haven't met, I feel like I know everybody. I know a lot of people in the comments. But I watched Josh. Basically, I first got into podcasting through NFL, and I used to watch Josh religiously. And I remember the time that he was the most. What was it? The man who got the draft right. What was it?
Mock draft. Yes.
Yeah, mock draft. Yeah, so you did a mock draft, and it was the most right mock draft in NFL history or something like that.
5 years ago, Neil.
Boy. That's Josh. That's my boy. I've been watching him for years. So.
And I remember when I found your podcast. I found your podcast, I believe, the day after we got promoted, if I'm not mistaken. And I've been a loyal viewer, loyal listener ever since. So
excellent. I appreciate that. And yeah, I love this. It's so funny that all the big you put up, you were going on the podcast or whatever, and then I could see all these people liking it. Then I was getting follows from other NFL, NFL guys. I'm like, oh my god, I know this guy from the NFL too. Instead of following me, so worlds are colliding here. So it's absolutely brilliant, and I really appreciate you coming on, Josh, because it's what, about 11 o'clock, half 11, where you are. In the States at the moment, so I appreciate your time. I really, really do.
Well, and it should be an exciting summer.
That's it.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see how they chop and change and progress. And I would just say, stay patient, because I know people wanted to rip Unai and Monchi in January, and then we get to the final day, and those were the key moves that nearly pushed them to the Champions League. So I would just say, stay patient, because they have a plan, and the club, I think, is in really, really good hands.
Absolutely. Yeah. So excellent. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching and for listening. If you're listening back to this afterwards, again, thank you so much to Josh. Need to get him on way more regularly. I keep on saying that, and I said it to him in my drunken haze when we were leaving the Celtic game, to himself and his wife. I goes, "I'll have you on tomorrow," or something along those lines. Which obviously never.
I'll invite myself on in the future, Neil.
Absolutely. Anytime, Josh. But thank you so much. And anybody who's into the NFL, if you don't know Josh Norris and you aren't following underdogs, then that's your fault. It's not my fault. It's your fault. And I can only help you to start to follow them as well. But so we're going to be back again with another. I'm going to do some more podcasts tomorrow. There'll be pre-recorded one scouting series that I've been looking forward to. Probably on those 5 strikers will come out tomorrow. Also, Paddy has not. Paddy's still around. He wants to do a little podcast on his own, just with his thoughts and his own post-season wrap-up. So that's going to be happening over the next couple of days. I may need to go 0 dark 30 for the next couple of nights, just with stuff I've got going on, but we'd still keep on pumping out the podcast maybe during the day, pre-recorded ones and whatever. And Paddy might jump on and do his end of season review himself. I'd love to be here for it. It's this week is a bit tricky for me. So thanks a million, Josh, for coming on so early today so that I could do this. And thanks a million to everybody for watching. We 2,300 people watching concurrently at one stage.
Amazing.
Here. So love you all. Absolutely do. And as I say, if you like this and you're new, subscribe, follow, all that jazz below. And we will be back very, very soon for a podcast again. So in the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy. And all that's left to do is say, you do it, Josh?
Up the Villa.
Up the Villa indeed. Good luck, guys.